On today's show, it's our twice-a-year special. Who are the Ottawa Senators' top 10 prospects right now?
In part one, we're going to look at players 10 through 6 and who just missed this list.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Thursday, February 13th, and Pilsy, it took me about 45 seconds to be completely immersed in the Four Nations face-off.
Oh, man. I think everyone's fully in now, Ross. Like, that was an exciting start to this tournament. Anytime you can get a box score where it says McKinnon from Crosby and McDavid, that's going to get any hockey fan excited, especially the way that goal happened right away to start the tournament off. My God.
We kept saying this, the Canadian power play is unmatched, and it took them 12 seconds on the first and only power play they got all game. Canada ends up winning in overtime, 4-3 the final score, and it was Mitch Marner who scored the overtime winner after we were chirping him all game. Felt like he was disengaged. It turns out the way to fix Mitch Marner is to add time that you don't get in the NHL. It was past the 5-minute mark of overtime. Marner just walks in. Great play. Like, Sidney Crosby is the story of this game, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially Ross, like, there was question marks if he was even going to play, let alone be able to have the impact he did. Like, that play to set up Mitch Marner's goal was great. It may not seem great, but that's a high hockey IQ by him, knowing to drop it there, and Mitch Marner's going to be there with speed to enter the zone. And then I don't know how you have the ability to do no-look backhand pass through the crease with a defenseman lying down to block it right on the tape to McKinnon. My
Dude,
God.
Did that not remind you, you're talking about the first power play goal, did that not remind you of Stützle's power play goal against the Jets in December, where Batherson did pretty much the same play?
Actually, very similar, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I think I've seen that before, but all in all, like, the skill is so high. It almost makes you feel like, wow, maybe some of the players on our own team aren't that good when you have, like, the best of the best. Like imagine, no offense, but imagine like Nick Cousins watching that game and be like, I play in the same league as these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, and especially Ross, like the crowd, like the oohs and the ahs and the gasps are just so much higher because every play is magnified. And anytime you get Team Canada's top 6 carrying the puck into the offensive zone, you're lifted off your seat and you're like, anything could happen right now. So yeah, I'm all in on this tournament now, especially when Team Canada is going to be playing. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. And I mean, Saturday night is going to be epic.
It's going to be Canada versus the U.S. Like, does it get any better than that? Tonight, we've got USA Finland. Brady Tkachuk will make his Four Nations debut. We had Linus Ullmark sit on the bench last night, and I kind of like that from the standpoint that it didn't make me feel bad at all when Canada scored 4 goals in this one. But Philip Gustafsson, Sens abroad, was unreal. In the third period, that blocker save he made on Devon Toews. That's a question, though. Why was Devon Toews getting all the scoring chances for Canada? He had like 3 elite looks in this game.
Yeah, I mean, when you're down one defenseman, other defensemen are going to get more opportunities. And I think if you're Team Sweden, Ross, you're probably looking at that decor and being like, hey, when Devon Toews and Cale Makar are out, if it's Toews that's getting the offensive opportunities, we'll take our chances there.
Yeah, and before the game, they had like classic Bell Center. We always clown on them for the hour-long pregame, but that was sick. And bringing out Daniel Alfredson. And did Alfie get cheered in Montreal? Like, it felt like Matthews got the boo birds for sure.
But, him and Nylander, big time boo birds.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see, though. So they had a legend and the captain of the team come out. So you had Mike Richter with Austin Matthews representing the U.S., Teemu Selanne with Alexander Barkov with Finland. Then you had Alfie with Victor Hedman for Team Sweden. But the house just erupted when Mario Lemieux came out for Team Canada. And just the whole full circle that Lemieux housed Sidney Crosby as a rookie in the league, to have him and Sid up there. And you could even see, like, when Sid got called up, like, Austin Matthews is looking in awe. Like, they're all just in awe of this guy as a legend of the game. But then he goes out there as the oldest player in this tournament and gets 3 primary assists. Like, this guy's ageless. And there were, I think on the broadcast, they were saying, like, oh, and Sidney Crosby wants to have his name in there for next year's Olympics. Like, are you kidding me? This guy's the captain of the team. Yeah, this guy's going to play in the 2020, the 2030 Olympics. Like, this guy still got it.
Yeah, he doesn't look like a guy that's, on the downside of the peak of his career. Like, he's still got it for sure.
Do the right thing, Pittsburgh. Trade this guy.
And I think even Ross, Pittsburgh fans are even like, you know what? He deserves it. Trade him. And I mean, you'd rather trade him than just let him go. I'm not sure what his contract is at. He just re-upped, didn't he?
8.7. He's got
for how many years?
4, I believe.
Okay, so yeah, so they got to trade him. Kyle Dubas, just do what you're doing in Pittsburgh. Replenish that prospect pool because that team is a mess right now. So let Sid go free.
2-year extension, 8.7, okay. Brings him to age 39 as a 2027 UFA. Just a ridiculous bargain contract there, seriously.
And just other crazy stuff, Ross. Like, how about Brad Marchand getting cheered in the Bell Center? Like, that must have been a weird one for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're cheering for the logo on the front. That third line and fourth line is what's gonna, like, they obviously have the elite talent up front, franchise talent, the best players in the National Hockey League. But like Brandon Hagel, again, like, I'm just enamored with this guy since he rose.
You're obsessed with him lately.
Did you not notice him a ton in that game though?
No, he was great. Yeah, it's just I hope he ends up getting a little more ice time. We saw John Cooper as the game was going on and Team Canada was doing what Team Canada does, letting things slip away. Cooper was like, all right, enough of this. Guys, put your Tampa Bay Lightning jerseys on.
Yep.
Point, Cirelli, Hagel, get out there, make something happen.
That was actually hilarious when he put those guys out there. But, I mean, you can't watch that game, though, and not think what could have been as an Ottawa Senators fan. Mark Stone on Canada scores. Erik Karlsson sets up a goal. He was unreal, I thought, in that game.
That setup was amazing.
And then Philip Gustafson and Mika Zibanejad. Like, come on.
Sick. Awesome. But they got great returns for all those players, right?
No.
Right?
Well, Karlsson, yeah.
Yeah, Karlsson, yes. Yeah.
And,
okay,
and they fell ass backwards into that great return because San Jose tanked the following year.
Yeah. But Gustafson, Stone, not so much.
But you know what I thought about and Zibanejad too?
And Zibanejad.
But speaking of Zibanejad, they're in the same trade tree though, because Ottawa got Derek Brassard for Zibanejad and then got Gustafson for Brassard.
True. And then Gus for Talbot. Darn.
Yeah.
That ends the trade tree.
Oops. And Martian's like, why'd we get rid of this guy? And hey, hand up. I was always a Joey Daccord guy. I guess that take's still fine. They're both pretty good goalies in the NHL.
You were a Gus hater though.
I didn't love Gus. He just had too many games where he's like, what are you doing? Like, how many times he led in 2 goals on 5 shots in Belleville?
No, 100%, and right off the top, which made him fit in with the Ottawa Senators goalies as well. And remember, we don't hear about it anymore, but remember that hot hand thing where he was like, literally, my hand is overheating?
No, it went numb when he got nervous.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, he's battled back. But hey,
gone through that.
You know what's, hey, Sens fans, you've beaten Gustafson 3 times now. Twice with Minnesota and once with Team Sweden. So he's played well. But you get the wins at the end of the day. So let us know what you think about the 4 nations. Because, I mean, even the biggest skeptic couldn't have watched that game and been like, these guys, because the biggest question mark is, are these guys going to give 100% effort every shift? They were buzzing.
Big time.
Especially in the first period. I think Sweden got their first shot with 6 minutes left in the first period.
Yeah, it was crazy. Now, with all the excitement and all the buzz of the 4 nations, Ross, that was anticipated. But we got to talk about the flip side of this coin and something else that was anticipated. Shea Theodore out week to week.
Didn't look good.
Looked like Golden Knights.
Looked like he like jammed his wrist. Not a doctor, but
he was trying to stop himself from hitting the boards, and I think his wrist got jammed where not the stanchion, where the boards and the glass meet, and he got crunched there. And if you're Vegas, you're like, this is why we didn't let Alex Pietrangelo play, because we were worried about this. So we keep Pietrangelo home, send our next best guy, or even you could argue even
The defenseman,
Teal.
because their best players there too. Mark Stone was so
Yeah,
good.
sorry, I meant defenseman. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. And then he gets hurt week to week. Like, oh, that's so crappy. And that's tough for Team Canada because they clarified, Elliot Friedman clarified, you cannot bring anyone else in. Like, it's not like
it sounds like they're gonna have, like, if another defenseman gets hurt, apparently there's kind of a handshake agreement where it's like,
okay, well, that's fair. But either way, like those top 6 guys, now Travis Sanheim is gonna slot into the lineup here. Like, get ready to roll. You're gonna be relied upon big time here.
and that's where it's like, look, Drew Doughty's a legend of the game, but like he's played 6 games this year and he's one of the oldest players on the team. Like, even with 5 defensemen, he played under 20 minutes. The only Canada defenseman to play under 20 minutes. So he's going to have to take on a bigger role. And we know he munches minutes in LA. I think he had 31 minutes his last game before going, but I'm intrigued to see what happens. This Colton Parayko guy was doing his best Travis Hamonic impression though yesterday. I was not impressed with him. Like on the third goal, like I get it, it's a tough play. Brad has it kind of point blank at the side of the net, but like he didn't have much of an angle and he was a left shot on the left side. Like as a defenseman, I guess you're just like, oh, it's a scoring chance I got to get rid of. But he left his guy back door. Eric Zanek was just wide open for that goal.
Yeah, and I think Parayko was probably the top guy when Team Canada announced the rosters. People being like, huh? Like, yeah. Really? But I think
Doug Armstrong's a part of the management crew, if you were wondering.
Yeah, fair. But I
just
think he was
starting goalie.
Yeah, that's a good point too. He was kind of brought on to be something different on that decor, right? Like he had a lot of skill, speed, and offense, and maybe they just wanted a little bit more size and physicality there.
You can't tell me he's better than Mackenzie Weegar, though.
And I wouldn't try to, Ross.
Yeah. So interesting, but great tournament. Can't wait for tonight. It'll be Brady Tkachuk for Team USA and maybe Nicholas Matin-Palo, but we're unsure. And he skated at the 7th defenseman at practice this morning. He said that it means everything to him to get that call. And even just being at practice, like going up against the high-flying forwards that every team has, like this has got to be a good thing for Nicholas Matin-Palo. Matin-Palo, a little older to be on our list. Our top 10 Sens prospects coming up next. We have set the parameters. We will explain them after the break and get into numbers 10 through 6. Tomorrow, we'll wrap up the top 5 countdown. It's the top 10 Sens prospects. Next, you're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Ross, have you found all those pistachios that you spilled on your desk? Yeah. I'm sure they're so good, you made sure to pick everyone up.
Not only did I pick them up, Billsy, I ate every single one of them. And I'm going to have some more right now, these wonderful pistachios.
Well, hey, Ross, that's an added bonus to pistachios. They're a snack that's covered. So if you drop it, the 5-second rule lasts forever. They're covered in a protective shell. And we love pistachios, especially Wonderful Pistachios, because they're one of the highest protein nuts around. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Ross, what flavor have you enjoyed the most so far?
Right now, I'm really enjoying these roasted, like these salted and what are they called here? Yeah, toasted and salted pistachios. Delicious. My wife has the spicier ones upstairs. She was loving them too yesterday.
Yep, and if you don't want to spend the time cracking open the shells, check out the no shells variety. It's a good grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether you're snacking at your desk, you're on a road trip, or you just need a quick protein boost.
After a workout, Pilsy. After a workout was great.
Yep, after a workout. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
All right, Billsy. So later on in the show, we'll discuss the Belleville Senators, who played at the Canadian Tire Center last night against the AHL's best team. But now we'll get to our top 10 Sens prospects. Pillsy, we've been doing this for a long time, but just last year, we started fully tracking our top 10. So before we get to this year's, and we'll explain the parameters here. 24 years old, we don't consider you a prospect anymore, even though you could very well still be an NHLer. I'm looking at Angus Crookshank, I'm looking at Cole Reinhardt, and I'm looking at Mads Søgaard in that category. But for prospect reasons, we're going under 24 years old.
Yeah, and that's the typical standard. Like that's what Scott Wheeler does. That's typically what any of the online prospect analysts do. So we just followed suit there.
So last summer, we do this twice a year. We do it in the middle of the summer and the middle of the season. Why in the middle of the season? I think it's great before trade deadline, getting a sense of where your prospect pool is located. And then if there's a trade involving a prospect, you can be like, oh, they traded their number 6 prospect for him, their number 8. So we'll have this in our back pocket and in the back of our minds as Steve Staios tries to make the NHL team better at March 7th on the trade deadline. But last summer, here was our top 10 list. Number 1 was Carter Yakimchuk, and that's number 1 with a bullet. I don't think that will surprise anyone. He's the only first-round pick on our list this year. Last year, though, we had Tyler Kleven at number 2, Mads Sogard at number 3, Zach Ostapchuk at number 4, Stephen Halliday was number 5, Jorian Donovan at 6, Levi Meralainen was number 7, Oskar Petterson at 8, Tyler Boucher at 9, and Gabriel Eliasson at number 10. Pilsy, safe to say there's been some movement. We'll also say right now that Tyler Kleven has graduated from prospect roundup. Like, he got his housing letter. He is a full-time NHL player. So
he's played every single game this year, Ross.
Yeah, one of five Senators. But Pilsy, in our years of doing this, since 2020, even 2019, when we started the show, this is our first ever prospect list without a note accent.
Oh, damn. RIP, pour one out for the Nodak Sens there. That's too bad. But, you know, it's a good thing because it means all the guys we had on there, they've evolved. They've graduated.
But I want more. But for the top 10 this year, we do have some new blood. Guys who were eligible last year, but who just didn't qualify for the list we had. So I'm excited to get into this, and I think we should just start it out with number 10 on this year's list, and that is going to be Pistol Pete. Oskar Petterson will be number 10 on our Locked On Senators prospect list for the Sens. He is in Belleville, full first season, came over midway through last year, and he's been put in a few different situations than before. Petterson is 6'2", 209 pounds, just turned 21 years old, right shot, usually plays right wing. But Pilsy, because of all the call-ups for Ottawa and just the way things have worked out, he's been playing center a bunch this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's good for Petterson. You know, you want to be able to have that versatility where coaches feel confident to use you in different spots in the lineup. In last night's game up against the Laval Rocket, he was on the third line right wing with Jan Yannick and Jamison Reese. So that's where he slotted in there. And I think he's a guy that we've talked to Coach David Bell from the Belleville Senators, and he's really kind of become a favorite of Bellsy because he knows Pettersson's going to be someone that forechecks hard. He's got some offense. We know he's got that shot, Pistol Pete, pew, pew. And he's really coming along nicely this year.
Yeah, I think that it's a patience game for Oskar Petterson. It's about finding his role within the organization. And I think at his best, he's killing penalties and he's finding ways to be physical out there. And kind of in that mold that he told us, Patrick Hornqvist is a guy that he really models his game after. And he's a guy, Patrick Hornqvist, I believe, came into the NHL a little bit later on. But once he was fully developed and mature, he was a very reliable player for a long time. So I think reliability and pro build are kind of the assets of Oskar Petterson that you're hoping translate to the NHL. But against his own age group, this guy could score goals. And we're just waiting for that shot to pop off a little bit more at the AHL level. But I think it's been as smooth of a transition as you can expect for a guy coming over mid-season last year and then settling in to his new role here. So this season, he's got 34 shots on goal in 41 games. So hoping that he adds a little bit more dynamic offense into his game in the second half. But if this team's going to get out of the doldrums, obviously they haven't really had a great roster in terms of call-ups and injuries and everything this year. I think Petterson could be a guy that when you get to the playoffs, he could come through for a big goal here or there for you and provide you plus 50-50 shifts throughout the game. So I'm excited to see where his career develops, but I think 10 is a good spot for him this year on our list of top 10 Sens prospects.
Yeah, and he's got a good head on his shoulder too, Ross. Obviously, we've had him as a guest on our show multiple times, and he didn't play any playoff games for the Belleville Senators last year. He was a black ace, and that's probably tough for him coming over. He probably felt like he deserved at least a shot to play, but he was in constant contact with coaches. They were letting him know what he needs to work on, what he needs to get better. And he watched his team play in the playoffs and then the offseason. I think that really kind of put a chip on his shoulder and drove him to improve his game. And I think this year, if they're able to turn things around and get back into the playoffs, like you mentioned, he's going to be a guy that's going to be a key cog in the wheel here.
So Oskar Petterson comes in at number 10 on our list of Senators prospects. Coming in at number 9, it is Max Guenette. And some may say, wow, Max Guenette, he's played some NHL games. He was an AHL All-Star. Why is he number 9 on the list? Pilsy, what would you answer to that?
I think just his play in Belleville, Ross, has really been consistent. Like, it's even if you go back a couple of years, Ross, like in 2022-23, he played 72 games with the Belleville Senators and he had 40 points. Like, this guy puts up points, and he started his career in Belleville in 2021-22 with 19 points in 48 games. And this year, the points have dried up a little bit, but I think that's because he's focusing a lot more on being better defensively with Belleville in 35 games. He has 5 goals, 6 assists, but he's a plus 13. So he's someone that's really kind of tried to maintain his ability to put up points, 11 points, not anything crazy, but he's still chipping in here. But he leads the Belleville Senators in plus minus by quite a bit at plus 13.
And we had actually moved it to under 23 in the summer. That's why he wasn't on the list there. The only reason why he's at number 9 for me is he is 23. So the runway is just getting less and less. But for a 7th round pick in 2019, it has been a nice trajectory upwards for Max Guenette. 6'2", 210 pounds. That really wanted position of a right shot defenseman. So I could see him playing NHL games, whether
he's played 8 of them already, Ross.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I could see him getting back in the mix, but I just think that there's guys on the list who are just younger than him at this point. So we're just looking at a little bit more upside for those guys going forward. But it's certainly been a nice season for Max Guenette. You're hoping the offense can come back a little bit more because he is their number 1 right shot defenseman down there. So if he can start putting the puck in the net, or at least contributing some more points, getting back to the pace that he had for himself last year, Max Guenette will be just fine. And he comes in at number 9 on our list of Sens prospects.
Just quickly too, like, this is a guy that has the kind of skill set and play that, Ross, I think it would kind of be a nice match to have him and Clevin as the bottom pair in an NHL lineup, right? Because you get a lot of size with both of them. Guenette, we have listed at 6'2", 210 pounds. He's the right shot guy that can transition the puck up the ice, play with a little bit more offense than Clevin, and you get that nice yin and yang. So that's something we could look forward to in the future.
Yeah, I agree. But you wouldn't have him before Martin Palo right now, would you?
No, right now, no. That's definitely Martin Palo, for me, has put his name in pen beside Tyler Clevin as the right shot defenseman on the 3rd pair in Ottawa.
So Max Guenette at number 9 on our top 10 Sens prospects in the winter of 2025. Coming in at number 8, it's Luke Ellinas from the Kitchener Rangers, a part of that 4th round that we keep talking about from the 2024 draft. Ellinas has had a really nice season with the Kitchener Rangers. He's injured right now, but as of today is back skating with the team. So he was out week to week, and it's good to see him back skating. He's 18 years old, 6'1", 185 pounds, plays center, plays wing, left shot, 18 goals in 41 games this year, 32 points. He's a plus 10 with 36 penalty minutes, wears a letter for Kitchener, so he's got the leadership in there too. I just think that he's the kind of guy where if he can get healthy down the stretch, he's going to be a big breakout candidate still. I know people said that last summer. The points are there. I mean, the goals are there. He can shoot the puck, but I think he's going to be kind of that middle 6 hopeful where he's like a little bit of everything, a jack of all trades.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Ross. And as you can see from his points, 41 games, 18 goals, 14 assists.
So that's 2 more goals than last year already in 16 less games, and he's 1 point shy of meeting last year's total.
Yeah, so he's got a good balance of goal scoring and playmaking, and he's obviously had an elevated role here in Kitchener and Kitchener Rangers. That's another team that's having a really nice OHL season. He was out with an upper body injury, so like Ross mentioned, hopefully we see him back playing games pretty soon here. But I think this was such a good value find for the Ottawa Senators in the 4th round. And I'm just looking back at my notes that I have from when he was selected, and EP called him a breakout candidate for OHL next season. You're seeing that. If he didn't get injured, I think he would have continued to excel. And they mentioned that his shot and work ethic are his top attributes. And that's one thing that the Ottawa Senators, I feel like, really keyed in on in this past draft was guys with big motors, good work ethics, and things like that. And Luke Ellinas is no exception there.
No, he's not. And he comes in at number 8 on our Locked On Senators top 10 prospect rankings. We'll get to number 7 and 6 in a moment. You're listening to Locked On Senators. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Factor. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Well, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. So whether you want calorie smart, protein plus, or keto, plus Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to help keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I hate meal planning and not knowing what you're going to have. You got to pull out meat from the freezer, and then it's not ready, and you're stressing out over something that should be enjoyable, like eating your meal. Don't worry about that with Factor, because the convenience is unbeatable. No press, no mess. Just great food in minutes. So eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box with Factor.
All right, Pillsy. So we're continuing our countdown here, our top 10 Sens prospects, our biannual countdown. We are in the winter break, so this is a great time to look at where the Sens prospect pool sits. And we've already got 7 through 10 here for you, or 8 through 10 rather. Luke Ellinas, Max Guenette, and Oskar Petterson. Before we climb to 7 and 6, let's talk about the guys who just missed. Tyler Boucher, we've taken out of the top 10. And we've also taken out Jorian Donovan. Donovan, I just think it's going to take him some time to get to the AHL level coming out of junior. Had a great junior season last year. Won the Memorial Cup. Was a member of Team Canada at the World Juniors. But it hasn't translated yet. He's finding his role though, right? He's finding a B game. He's fighting. He's hitting. He's being physical. So I do think that he is not forgotten, but just moved out of the top 10 right now.
Yeah, and Ross, speaking of fighting, he held his own up against Logan Mailloux with the Laval Rocket in last night's game. And that's, I don't know the size of Mailloux, but that seems like a mismatched size fight there for Donovan, and he held his own. There's a couple good haymakers thrown by both of them.
And he's played 35 games. So the good news for Donovan is he's getting a lot of reps. He's minus 17 with 4 assists, still looking for his first goal in the AHL. With Tyler Boucher, I mean, availability is the best ability. And it's just unfortunate. He had found his game to an extent. He had a 4-game point streak. He had points in 5 of 6 and then got hurt again. So it's not the end of the story for Tyler Boucher, but it just feels disingenuous to have him on a top 10 list when he just hasn't been able to play enough games.
Yeah, and we're rooting for him. He's a great kid, been on the show a bunch and put in a tough spot. And then obviously injuries throughout his whole hockey life for us. It's not just since he's been drafted. It's been a long string of injuries for Boucher, unfortunately. But yeah, at this point, he's just been leapfrogged by other players, and we're hoping he can figure things out, though.
So we'll say the honorable mentions are Tyler Boucher, Jorian Donovan, and Javon Moore, who all just missed the list.
Yeah, and we had considered Matthew Andonovski as well, but he kind of took a step back this year, in my opinion. He had a dominant OHL season the year before, finishing a league high plus 58. But again, that's a guy with a lot of runway too, so we're going to be keeping our eye on him as well.
Speaking of a lot of runway, coming in at number 7 on our Locked On Senators top 10 Sens prospects is Gabriel Eliasson, the youngest player from the 2024 draft. He decided to come to Barrie, which I think is such a great call for him and his career instead of going into the USHL. And Gabriel Eliasson, his numbers are kind of better than I thought they'd be. Let's put it that way. And I think there's something to be said too. He's 6'7", 220 pounds already. Left shot defenseman who is a savage on the ice. He is not afraid to lay the body over and over and over again. You know, when Gabriel Eliasson is on the ice in 45 games this year, he has 2 goals, 3 assists, +9, and 94 penalty minutes. So discipline will remain a key part of Eliasson's development.
Yes, absolutely. Only 13 games out of 45 this year did he have 0 PIMs. So he keeps the mean streak going. But man, there is an advantage there, Ross, because other teams are going to be very aware when he's on the ice, and he's a player that strikes fear into his opponents. And when games get close and tough, he's going to make guys make rash decisions. They're not going to be thinking, I got an extra 2 seconds here with my head down with the puck. You're not going to do that with Eliasson on the ice. I guarantee that. Or if you do, you're going to learn your lesson pretty quickly here. So look, I know I was hard on the pick. This is the style of player that picking in the second round, in my opinion, you're taking a gamble. But if you're going to take a gamble on players that have size and play a physical game, nobody has more size and more physicality than Gabriel Eliasson. So what I'm saying is, if you're really going to push on that, they pushed on it all the way, and they put all their chips in on this second round pick. And if he pans out and works the way we hope he does, it could be great. If not, I think this is going to be one of those where you're looking back at that draft and circling picks that went after him, and you may be disappointed. But I'm rooting for Gabriel Eliasson. Don't get it twisted, Ross. Don't try to do your classic spinning me against what Sens fans want. That's not what I'm doing here. I want Gabriel Eliasson to have a great career, continue his development, and get a little more touches with the puck as well, because we know he dominates in a physical fashion. So let's start rounding out the rest of his game here.
Big time. One thing I'll say, though, I was impressed to see he's got 57 shots on goal this year, too, in his 45 games. So he is putting pucks on net and continuing. And I love that he's playing on a good team, because that's the type of player where I think if he has some support and some puck movers on the decor with him, he's going to be able to make an impact in the way he knows how. And he's obviously a great kid. If you missed our interview with him right before the season, you got to check it out. He's all time, and he gets it, and he understands the narrative around him, and he wants to prove people wrong. He's got a big chip on his shoulder, and I'm excited to see what Eliasson comes out. There's no prospect like him in the NHL.
None. No, and that's what I said. Like, if you're deciding that you value size and physicality, then you nailed this pick. You couldn't have got a better pick if that's what you're going for. So he's a fun prospect, just an absolute beauty. Like, look at this kid. Like, he's a good Swedish tall defenseman. Like, we're excited to follow him along in his career, and hopefully some more appearances on the Locked On Senators podcast.
And he had a great line when he left the show. And this is what I imagine people who he just rocks in a game, what he says to them right after he hits them. Let's play the clip.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. So Gabriel Eliasson, absolute beauty.
Bye-bye.
What an absolute stud. Can't wait to chat with Eliasson here coming up. He's one of the good guys, and we're rooting for him big time to make his mark as he develops. He's still committed to the University of Michigan. We'll ask him if that's something that he is still considering doing, because he can stay in Barrie here for the next couple of years to develop as well. So Eliasson comes in at number 7 on our Locked On Senators top 10 prospects. At number 6, we're going with an older prospect. He is 23 years old, but Donovan Sebrango needs to be mentioned on this list this year. He has really evolved his game as not only a stable player at the AHL level, but a leader for the Belleville Senators. He wears a letter. He's their emotional leader. He'll fight. He'll box out. He's got offensive touches, a great shot. He's got 5 goals already this year. I think he's the biggest riser on our list. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. For people that don't remember, he came to the Ottawa Senators in the Alex DeBrincat trade. Kind of seemed like a bit of a throw-in player, but we talked to our guy, Sean Fafaro, who covers the Kitchener Rangers, and he said, do not overlook Donovan Sebrango. And I would say that take is looking pretty good right now, because he was kind of an ECHL, AHL fringe guy when he came to Ottawa, but he's really figured it out, and he's become a big part of that Belleville team, like Ross mentioned. And he even got 2 games up with the big club with the Ottawa Senators, which was an awesome story. Everyone remembers hearing about his mom, Kim Sebrango, and their journey to get Donovan to this level. So yeah, a great kid with a lot of skill, and he's got size as well. 6'1", 220 pounds.
Super easy to root for. Left shot defenseman, and he does play that physical game too. And you can see at the AHL level, he's not afraid to use it either. So he's got 5 goals, 10 assists, good for 15 points in 35 games, 54 penalty minutes. He's -1, and you mentioned the 2 games in the NHL. It was a great story, and it all stemmed from his training camp. He came in ready. He worked extremely hard, and you could see in preseason games, he might have deserved to make this team out of camp based on the way he played there. So he signed for the rest of this year at $828. He's an RFA afterwards, and I think he's done a great job of putting himself into the mix as a call-up option for the rest of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's certainly one of the top choices. Maybe a guy like Jeremy Davies would also have an opportunity, but Sebrango is certainly making a case for himself to be a call-up if necessary.
So part 1 of our Locked On Senators prospect rankings. Number 10, Oskar Petterson. Pew, pew. Number 9, Max Guenette. Number 8, Luke Ellinas. Number 7, Gabriel Eliasson, and number 6, Donovan Sebrango. So 2 2024 draft picks, 1 from 2022, 1 from 2019, and 1 from 2020 we've got so far. Tomorrow, we will have the numbers 5 through 1, the top 5 Senators prospects, Pilsy. Cannot wait for that. Speaking of a few of these prospects, though, Pilsy, last night the Belleville Senators played at the CTC, and they beat the wheels off the Laval Rocket. Pilsy, it's something about being at the CTC for Levi Merelainen, another shutout.
Crazy. And Ross, going into this game, I was excited because obviously Belleville doesn't get to play in the big house that often, but part of me was like, oh man, I wish they had a little bit easier of an opponent going into this game. This could get ugly. No. The Belleville Senators, they knew what opportunity they had here, and they dominated the Laval Rocket, a 5-0 win over the top team in the division. And Levi Merelainen stops all 24 shots he faced, including Ross. The Laval Rocket put the pressure on in the 3rd period. They outshot Belleville 14-1. And Levy just shuts the door, and Stephen Halliday continues to get things, keep things rolling, as he had 2 goals in this one. Not a disher. Told you he's a goal scorer, Ross, with 2 goals in this one. And Sam Gagner has been a really nice addition to this team, as he got 2 assists, and Donovan Sebrango opened up the scoring. So lots of great numbers on the stat sheet here for the Belleville Senators in this win.
Should we be adding Sam Gagner to our top 10 Sens prospects?
Yeah, there's some runway for him. Maybe we could see him as a call-up as well.
He's almost older than Ellinas and Eliasson combined.
Hey, good for him. And he was the type of player they needed, Ross. So that I'm happy for Gagner, and I'm happy.
He is older than both them combined. Almost. He's 35. Those two are 36 combined.
Nice. Yeah. But that was a huge win for Belleville, Ross, because if you look at the standings, I talked about this. The games in hand are going to be huge for Belleville. They only have played 41 games. They have 5 games in hand on the Syracuse Crunch. They're only 5 points back.
Yep.
So if they can get those wins, they can sneak into that 5th spot into the North Division, which if people aren't aware, the top 5 teams in the North Division make the playoffs in the AHL. So they may not be having a good season. They may be decimated by their roster because of the Ottawa Senators injuries, but they are not out of this by any means.
No, and I'm looking forward to a strong finish. And with Levi Marilainen back there, it seems like they're figuring it out. So we'll see. I mean, how long Marilainen stays down there for. Yeah. But goal scoring was something that David Bell really wanted to correct. And 5 goals against the number 1 team in the AHL is a pretty good dose of medicine for that. And speaking of Stephen Halliday, no spoilers for tomorrow, but Sens prospects tweeting out with those pair of goals, Halliday now has 28 points in his last 26 games. So wow. He is buzzing right now. And when you go to the AHL rookie leaders, Halliday is 5th, tied for 4th with Dalibor Dvorsky, a top 15 lottery pick in the NHL. So he's doing real nice down there, and it's great to see for our guy Stephen Halliday. So we'll be following that, and we might talk more about Stephen Halliday on tomorrow's show.
We just might, Ross. We just might.
For today, we say goodbye. Hope everyone has a great day. Make sure you're following along on Twitter at Sens Central, Instagram LockedOn.Senators. Subscribe to the show everywhere you get podcasts, and please support us by supporting our great sponsors like Wonderful Pistachio and Factor Meals. For today, we say goodbye. That's Brandon Piller. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.